All right, good morning. Why don't we call the Northwest Suburbs Cable Commission meeting to order, and our illustrious chair, Al, is out ill today, so I hope he's feeling better soon. Thank you all for being here. First item on the agenda is our consent agenda, which is the approval of minutes from the September 20th meeting and the treasurer's report, which were included in your packet. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Thank you, Roger. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion, all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Action items, consideration of the Budget Committee and Executive Committee's recommendation on the 2019 budget. Do you want to?
Sure. Just, Madam Chair, I just want to let everyone know that the Budget Committee and Executive Committee met following our September 20th Commission and Board meeting to discuss the 2019 Cable Commission and NWCT budgets, and both committees unanimously approved the 2019 budget, so we're looking for your approval this morning.
That's correct. Thanks, Mike. Any comments, questions on the proposed budget? If not, is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Helen. Further discussion? All in favor of approving the 2019 budget as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the legal update. Mike, do you want to?
Sure. Start out here. I have attached a couple items to the memorandum related to small cell wireless facility laws and FCC cable franchise fee notice of proposed rulemaking. These are two very important issues, and the most important one at this point is the notice of proposed rulemaking. We did put not only a summary, but the full comments that were sent to the FCC yesterday. You should have those in front of you here. And then later on, I'd like Mike just to give us a quick update too on CenturyLink, and then we'll go from there. But I do want to say that Mike and his staff and his legal team really put a lot of time into this project, a very important one, and I think Mike's firm has done a great job making some compelling arguments for why the FCC might be overreaching in this instance. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike and take it away.
Well, thank you, Mike, and good morning, everybody. Well, like Mike said, at our September 20th meeting, I mentioned that there was going to be two orders that were coming out of the FCC, that we expected to come out of the FCC at the end of the month, and both of those things did happen. One was a new small cell wireless order that came out on September 20th. They both came out around September 28th, and they were both published in mid-October. The small cell wireless order becomes effective in January, around January 19th of next year, and it has already been appealed. It was appealed to the initially in the 9th Circuit and the 10th Circuit, and what happens is there's kind of a lottery as to who gets the case after that. So the 10th Circuit won the lottery, and so the case is now pending in the 10th Circuit. One thing that also happened, which I think is unfortunate, is a city filed a petition for reconsideration, and the municipal groups that were appealing the wireless order were intentionally not filing for reconsideration because if you go back to the old cable franchising orders in the mid-2000s, there was a petition for reconsideration filed there back in like 2007, and the FCC didn't act on that petition for about 7 years, and so there was a concern that if we did a petition for reconsideration on the wireless order, that a similar action would happen where the order would become effective, but then because the petition for reconsideration was pending, it just stayed effective until they finally acted. So that's unfortunate. I'm not sure what's going to happen as a result of the petition for reconsideration right now. I do know that the parties that appealed in the 10th Circuit have asked for a stay of the order, meaning, to put the order on hold until the litigation ends. But there hasn't been a ruling from the FCC on that either. So Right now, I'm operating as if the order will become effective in January. If, one of the things that is required in that FCC order that that all of your cities will need to address is making sure that if you want aesthetic standards to be enforced in your cities related to small cell wireless, that you have those published before April 15th, 2019. Okay. There is a chart in your packet under information items. So it's this chart here. And what we did there is we kind of put a side-by-side comparison on kind of what we consider some of the major issues with the small cell legislation and the FCC order. Did a side-by-side comparison on one of the charts, and then on the next page there's a summary of what we think are the applicable standards for cities. So it's probably worth taking a look at your wireless ordinance if you haven't done that already. So that's the wireless order. And then, as Mike said, there was a notice of proposed rulemaking that was issued at the end of September, again published mid-October. The due date for initial comments was yesterday, and we were able to put together a really good group. We were really pleased with the group that we put together to file comments. So we had the City of Minneapolis, your organizations, which are the two largest cable franchising authorities in the state, as well as several other cable commissions and cities in the state of Minnesota, which was fabulous. The City of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania also joined, as did Oklahoma City and Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Renton, Washington, some towns in New York. So and some towns in Wisconsin and Iowa. So really we had a really nice sized group participating in these comments. I think it's 7 states or so and almost 4 million in population size. So I think our comments will get a good look at the FCC. We put together a little summary for you. So the first 2.5 pages there, I guess I'd encourage you to read through those, because rather than the 60-some pages that follow that. But that really gives you a good idea. We tried to show what the impact was to local governments on that summary page, and then kind of summarize what our arguments were, which was basically that the FCC doesn't have authority to interpret a rule or interpret a law that's been in place since 1984 and has never needed interpretation before. There's no support in legislative history. There's no support for changing that law in 34 years of past practice, or maybe even more than that in past practice. And the cases certainly don't support that kind of a decision. We made a lot of arguments as well in the alternative. So if the commission went ahead and imposed a new definition of franchise fee, their tentative conclusion was that essentially all in-kind considerations, all non-monetary considerations in a cable franchise would still be considered part of the franchise fee and then offset from your current franchise fee. And we made a lot of arguments as to why actual costs should be used rather than fair market value. And really, I think the most compelling of those, I think, we made a number of different arguments, but I think the most compelling is that the cable operators are already allowed to recover those franchising costs that have been embedded in their rates since, the 90s at least, if not before then. And if you allow fair market value recovery, it doesn't pay any attention to what the cost is. So it'll be an annual cost, fair market value cost, and it'll allow a cable operator to recover maybe multiple times what the actual cost was, and it's the cable subscriber that pays for that. And how is that fair at all to have that kind of a process moving forward? So we were very pleased with how the comments came out. After reading them, please let Mike Johnson know or me If you have any other thoughts that you'd like included, we will be submitting reply comments as well. Those are due on December 14th. So, yeah, we just finished these yesterday, so now we turn around and start reading all the comments that'll be submitted. We are, by the way, working with a group at NATOA and kind of coordinating, reading the different comments and deciding which comments we want to reply to. So that's the notice of proposed rulemaking. And then the CenturyLink matter, I think I spoke about this at our September meeting as well, but CenturyLink has announced that it's discontinuing its PRISM product, and we put together a memo that was, I think, in your September packet that that said that they're likely, that CenturyLink is likely in violation of their cable franchises as a result of their deciding not to provide cable service. And I've since had some discussions with CenturyLink about that, and we're working with them on just creating a path so that we're not spending a lot of time and resources looking at renewal or compliance, and allowing them to exit the marketplace in a kind of a orderly manner. And we're working through those issues right now. I just received a draft settlement agreement from CenturyLink yesterday. So we'll be looking at that and bringing that forward to you at another meeting.
Do you see that happening at the February meeting? Or later, will it take longer than that?
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly. I'm hopeful that's the case. And so that's what's happening with CenturyLink. And basically what I'm talking with CenturyLink now is kind of a path that allows them to provide cable service through the end of their franchise term, and then they agree that they're not going to be asking for renewal or, preserving any federal renewal rights or informal renewal rights. There'll just be an end date, and they'll be done.
Thank you. Thanks for all your work on all those topics.
Yeah.
Are there questions for Mike or Mike?
So we used to be able to recover attorney's fees and costs for negotiations with the cable companies in that they're exiting. Is that going to be part of the agreement, or is that something you think about negotiating later?
Yeah, I haven't asked them for any fees, and our fees have been fairly minor at this point, and that's part of the reason why we're approaching it this way. They did pay for all of our fees in the franchising part.
And then back on the small wireless, one other time you told us that they could use a facility on a pole up to the size of a refrigerator. Can they break it down so that there's like a refrigerator, but it's in like 2 or 3 parts at various places on the pole, or how does that work?
Yeah, typically they just have one facility where they have kind of it's like an equipment cabinet, basically. And they're not usually broken apart.
So what, let's say they want to just use one facility and it's like this big.
Mm-hmm.
And can they just say, well, we haven't used our full refrigerator's worth or our full cubic feet, whatever it's measured in. We also want to have something higher up. Can they do it that way?
If you don't adopt any aesthetic standards, probably.
So we should think about finding aesthetic standards if we are so inclined.
Aesthetic and undergrounding standards, for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for Mike? Oh, go ahead.
Mike, can you explain to the commission, back to the notice of proposed rulemaking after December, because we don't meet again until sometime in February, what is the step? So can the FCC take unilateral action and impose this, and do you foresee this then immediately going to the courts and potentially there would be a stay? Walk us through, the potential next steps.
Sure. So the way that a notice of proposed rulemaking works is that you have a comment period for interested parties to make comments. You'll have a reply comment period for parties to reply to other parties that made comments. And then it goes to the FCC. And it's really up to the FCC then as to when and how or even if they issue an order. So it's not a foregone conclusion that they'll actually issue an order, although we anticipate they probably will. It may take many months before they issue an order. May not. They may be ready to issue an order, even before the comments have been filed and submitted. But in any event, I would expect that it would be at least 3 to 6 months before the FCC was ready to take action after getting these comments, because I think there's going to be a lot of comments filed. I think there'll be a lot of reply comments filed. So FCC staff is going to have a lot to go through in order to bring forward an order that considers all of that. If the FCC does take action and issues an order that's negative to local governments, for sure, then it would be a lot like the wireless order in that a reconsideration petition could be filed, or cities could appeal directly to the Court of Appeals for judicial review of that order. And at that time, again, like the wireless order, you would ask the interested parties that are appealing would ask the FCC to stay their order voluntarily, and then based on what the FCC does, then they would also likely ask then the court to issue a stay as well. Then it would go through the appellate process, which would take about a year or so after that. So there's kind of a long legal process that still follows after this.
Okay.
We're at the very, very beginning stages on the cable franchising notice of proposed rulemaking, and I guess with the wireless order, we're kind of in the middle or so, and on the legal review process. Okay?
Thank you. Any other questions for Mike or Mike? All right. Thank you again for all your work on that.
Thank you.
Those topics. Communications, Mike, anything?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just want to point out that over the last couple of meetings, we've been adding this communications section. So when I get information, for instance, like the Comcast, one of the things that's in there is the third quarter financial report from Comcast. It's publicly available. We just made copies for you, and you can see what their revenue is between the cable communications aspect and then the NBC Universal. There's you can see obviously that cable is still a big part of their a larger part of their business than the NBC Universal, and they're holding their own. Certainly they lose subscribers. We continue to lose subscribers, but like I said at the last meeting, even though they're losing subscribers, they're also the net losing. They're also, people still hook up every single month. So it goes back and forth. Some people don't like their satellite service, or in the wintertime it snows, and then all of a sudden people say, well, my TV keeps going out every time it snows, I'm going to go back to cable. So it goes back and forth, but generally speaking, it is more of a downward trend. But the financial statement is very interesting. It's obviously a big company, and they made some big acquisition with a European communications group just recently. So there's obviously a lot of money there to make major acquisitions. Also have some memos in there that Carly usually sends when there's some changes in channels from one spot to another spot. And it turns out that Comcast is the nation's largest provider of gigabit internet. I included a little graphic in there. And a long time ago, the FCC decided that we cannot obviously get 5% of any internet revenue. If we did, life would be very good around here. But that was decided long ago that that's not the case. So even though, I may have mentioned this before, even though there could be a traditional cable subscriber loss in the TV world, Comcast really doesn't suffer that much because everybody is still needs internet. Like if you do these over-the-top services like Roku, Apple TV that I've talked about before, or Amazon Prime, all those require high-speed internet in one form or another. So, and they're typically going to get that service usually from Comcast or possibly CenturyLink, but Comcast tends to have the fastest speed. So, so they will be in good shape with that. And I just included some articles about Roku and Netflix and Amazon Prime. Again, these are all things that we're always constantly looking at. I may have mentioned in the past that we're doing some beta testing on Roku boxes with one of our vendors. It's not costing us anything. They actually prefer to have us up there, like CCX Media, so they can see how our operation, we can see as well how well it operates in a over-the-top environment using a Roku box or Apple TV. And so it's quite promising. And so we're still just taking all that in baby steps, and just another thing we need to look for in terms of the future. So really, that's all I have on the communications side.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mike? All right. Since it is the last meeting of the year, as is our tradition, I believe we're doing service recognition for commission and board members.
Yes, Madam Chair, it is. We do this annually. It's based on 5-year increments, and time flies for board member service. It's amazing, and cable commission service. So today, I think we have everybody here too. So this is great. We have a full house, and what we want to do is hand out these plaques. So I'll start out with the first
Okay.
plaque. We'll call up Joni Clausen, City of Golden Valley, for her 5 years on the Cable Commission. There you go.
Really? And I think we're going to do pictures afterwards.
Yes,
if
when we
people
do the
can stick around.
breakfast. Yes.
So we can get a picture. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. And remember, Joni's, her father, Ray Stockman, is one of the founders of the organization back with Jack Irving. And so I know when she first was named to the Cable Commission, it was kind of an exciting time for her because her father is the one who kind of got this whole thing going and had the vision. So thank you, Joni. Next is George Selman from the City of Robbinsdale, Cable Commission member.
Thank you. Congratulations. And stick around for a picture.
And now we're going to go into the 10-year category, and we're going to recognize Council Member Phil Leith from the City of Maple Grove. Phil?
Oh, boy. This
And now the breakable item here. We want to recognize Robbinsdale City Manager, Administrator Marcia Glick for all of her service on the Northwest Community Television Board of Directors, 20 years of service.
Wow, way to go. Thank you all. That's very cool. All right, is there any other business for this group?
Only to say that after we do our NWCT meeting, we will have a breakfast. Some people have been asking about where are the donuts, and so we have something better than donuts. Trust me, it's better than donuts. You just got to hang in there for a little bit, and but that'll happen right after the Northwest Community Television meeting.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Further discussion, all in favor say aye. We're adjourned. Now I'll turn it over to Marcia.
Okay, we'll call the Board of Directors meeting to order. First thing on our agenda, as usual, is the consent items, being the minutes and the treasurer's report.
Move approval.
Thanks, Ann. A motion, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, action items. We have consideration of the Budget Committee and Executive Committee recommendation to approve the budgets. Mike?
Yeah, I just, again, the Cable Commission just gave final approval, so now just as a formality, we would need final approval from the Northwest Community Television Board of Directors.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. And then we have an additional action item. This is familiar to some of us in the cities, accepting donations. So, Mike.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is something that our auditor, when we did the audit this summer, they were asking if we had any money that was donated to the organization in 2017, and I had said no, we hadn't, which we had not. And then I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, you might need to do a resolution anytime you get money going forward from a group. So that got my wheels spinning and going, well, maybe we should, because earlier in the year we did receive a $500 Medtronic Foundation Volunteer Grant Program Award, thanks to Daryl Sanis, who is a former Medtronic employee, and they've got a great program in place that any Medtronic employee that volunteers for an organization can have money go to that organization or any organization that they volunteer for. So Daryl decided that it would be best if that money went to our organization. So as a formality and doing this, we decided to do the resolution today. Mike Bradley is going to look into, there's a little gray area because this was received by the nonprofit organization, the 501c3. So it's not really the city, but it's the Cable Commission that set up the nonprofit. So just to be safe, we figured we better pass this resolution accepting the money, so we have something in place. And in the meantime, Mike will research this a little bit further once the whole FCC information settles down a little bit, and he'll have more time to look into it. So we just would like you to pass this resolution today.
Okay. Any questions? Motion?
Move approval of the resolution.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and then we have the executive director report.
Sure, I'm going to make this quick because we did not have reports at the last meeting due to all the items that were on the agenda, the initial budget and several other items. We want to allow for time for our staff. We've got some really good staff reports today. There's been a lot of things happening, so I'm anxious to get to that group. I do want to make a special mention for Jay Wilcox, who is an employee. In fact, there's his picture on the screen. Jay has worked for our organization for 30 years and continues to work for our organization. He's just celebrating a 30-year anniversary, and so we will recognize him at our employee recognition breakfast later on in December. And we want to thank Jay for all of his service. He is well known. He goes into any high school, everybody knows Jay, or John, our other sports person. Jay has done literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of interviews in his history here, and has also announced thousands of sporting events in their entirety. So he has been around. He's an excellent employee. Always gets the job done, is well known out in the community, and so we just wanted to let the board know that Jay's been here for a solid 30 years now and keeps going strong. So moving on, I wanted to mention that now I'm a member on the National Board of the Alliance for Community Media. We met here in Minneapolis last week, and I was able to give some of the board members a tour of this operation here and explain how CCX Media works, and they were very, very impressed with our organization. I've had the opportunity to speak at many different conferences about what we're doing, and so there's a lot of ears that pop up, and so a lot of the things that we're doing is being replicated in other parts of the country now, which is good because it's a good thing. It shows that some of the things that we're doing are working, and now they're working for other organizations. So that's one of the great reasons to be able to share ideas. I do want to thank Comcast, of course, is invited to every meeting, and certainly CenturyLink people were too as well. They were not able to make it today, but I want to thank them for the work they did on two Robbinsdale projects. One was when they first opened their municipal liquor store. They were able to get high-speed internet hooked up in Robbinsdale real quick. They needed the service for opening day. And they also went above and beyond the call of duty on a project for the Travail restaurant. They needed some cable lines being moved, and they did it very quickly. So I worked with the cable company, worked with Marcia and her staff, and everything went very well. The staff, I want to thank Tim Gaffron for all of his work coordinating the effort of doing our final kind of replies on the closed captioning report that Mike and his staff put together. Mike and his staff will now review all of our comments and then get back to us probably sometime, late in the year, early next year, to discuss what our comments were, and we'll go forward from there. The other thing is that we are in the middle of an audit with the cable company, and Mike is coordinating that with a company out of Florida that is auditing Comcast. Again, it's just our fiduciary responsibility, just kind of make sure that whatever they're reporting to us, again, because the numbers do come to us, that whatever is reported and ultimately deposited into our account is what it should be. So I'm assuming we'll get something by the end of the year, maybe, or maybe early next year.
Well, I know they've been waiting for, the accountants have been waiting for data from Comcast, so that's been the holdup right now.
Yeah, so it's in order for the audit to work, obviously Comcast has to be cooperative. I believe they might have some numbers for our organization, but because this is a joint project with other municipalities, we're kind of doing this all as one group. We did host a brown bag luncheon right here in this room several weeks back from MACTA, the Minnesota Association of Telecommunications Administrators were here, and they were able to see our operation, take a tour. I nominated Dave Kaiser to be on the board. They were looking for some new board members because some were retiring. I believe firmly that we should be involved in some of these either statewide or national groups so we can get a voice and be, have a voice at the table, so to speak. So I think Dave will do a great job in representing MACTA, the statewide organization. I believe he starts in January in that role. So congratulations to Dave. And then in the packet, I included some information from Shannon about all these specials that we're doing. They're really well done. If you haven't seen them, the entire list is there. I'm not going to read through them, but there's some really, really neat things that have been done by the news department, beyond all of our election coverage that they're going to talk about and all the other great things. So that's all well done. And I had the opportunity to attend the volunteer gala, and Barb will talk about that as well. And then also attend a special event hosted by St. Paul Neighborhood Network about how to do stories with immigrants who are moving into your community. There was a filmmaker who was from Boston speaking to several of us representing community TV centers around the metro. Very interesting, compelling stories. And that's something we want to be sensitive to in terms of when we're doing interviews with immigrants and letting them tell us their story. So that was a very worthwhile time going to that. And then I think that's it. I want to, if there's no questions, I will turn it over to Dave Kaiser.
Any questions? I just want to thank Mike real quickly. You have these construction projects on the books for months and months and months, and you get up to the deadline and the critical piece just isn't there, and it's nice to be able to phone a friend and let a little miracle happen to get us back on the schedule when we keep being bumped. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Staff reports.
Thank you. Good morning, board members and commissioners. We do have quite a few items to pass along today, so sit back in your chair and relax. We will have a few things on the screen, and again, multiple staff people making a few announcements. Number one, I do want to mention a little bit about the election coverage. Obviously, a big time for us each year, and it's not just one night, as I know it's not just one night in your cities. It is months of work that goes into that, and I'd like to introduce Shannon to talk a little bit about that in a second. But first, we do like to toot our horn a little bit. After you put all that work in, you like to tell people, boy, this is what we did, and we're glad you were a part of it as viewers. So here's a quick 30-second spot that's now airing on our channels as well as Comcast to just let people know what the election coverage was like for the months of the election. Let's roll that.
Many of the people who make the decisions about what happens in your city and at your school are your friends and neighbors. This election season, we gave each candidate 45 seconds to tell you who they are and what they believe. You could watch those statements as well as candidate forums on demand on ccxmedia.org. On election night, we were live, bringing the latest in local races to you. We are proud to bring you Local Vote 2018 as part of your connected community experience.
So again, just to remind people after the fact of what was involved in the coverage, and again, Shannon is the key to that as far as leading the news department and some of the contact that is made with candidates, but there are quite a few people in all different departments in the organization that play a role in the election coverage. But Shannon, if you have a second, tell us a little bit about the work.
Yes, for the past few months, everything that we've done has been judged what happens before the election and what's happening after the election. So we've been looking forward to that date. Just to give you a little perspective on those 45-second clips, we allot 30 minutes for each candidate to come in and record that, so they're very comfortable with the product before they leave. We had the possibility of having 96 candidates come through, and we had 86 take advantage of the opportunity. And I will say we live in the world of Facebook politics and nasty ads, but it's really refreshing to see that we had so many diverse candidates come through, but they had the commonality of caring about their community. They had a skill set that they wanted to offer, and that really came through in the candidate statements. And I think they were received well. Worked with Tim, worked with Steve to package those in a better way that was more viewer-friendly to get out to our public. And the numbers came in to show people really wanted to see that information. And we offered it free to the public. It wasn't behind a paywall or a subscription service. And so that was a really good service for our community, I believe, and I couldn't be more proud of the effort and outcome. Of course, it culminated in election night. We had about an hour and a half of coverage. We interviewed 12 candidates live. And once again, I think it was information that people wanted to see. Moving beyond that, just to add a little bit on what Mike was saying about the special coverage that we have coming up, we're really trying every 2 weeks to go a little bit more in depth and offer more perspective into different projects in our community, whether it's development, whether it's diversity, whether it's an educational issue, something like that, just to offer a little bit more to our community. I want to call your attention to two things that we did in the past few months. The first was a mental health special that aired during September, and we tried to come at it toward what's new on this horizon. How are our schools coping with mental health issues? How are our cities coping? What services are available that we have? We worked with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, to make sure that we had all our reporting accurately. We were framing it all in the correct way, and so I'm pretty proud of that product. We also did one with a little more local focus in October on revamping Hollingsworth Park and the efforts there. It was truly one of those people's stories, and that the citizens were really putting forth the effort to turn that park around, so I was pretty proud of that. In the process, I got to interview several people, and one of the Robbinsdale firefighters told me, "This better not be a short story." And I told him, "I promise it will be more than 2 minutes. That's our typical story length. I'm trying to get it about 7. He said, "I will call you if it's not." So I didn't hear from him, and it's usually a good thing when we don't hear from folks. It means that it was all above board, so I'm pretty proud of that. There's an in-depth 2-page piece in your report that you're welcome to look at to see what we have coming up through the end of January. And as always, if you have a great idea out there of something that you think deserves a little bit more time, a little bit more perspective, let us know. We can't tell the great stories if we don't know about them. So don't be afraid to give us a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. And again, thank you to Shannon's staff and the entire staff. And Shannon will now run back to the newsroom to get ready for the news meeting, to get the process started for today. A couple other items to touch base on. This fine gentleman on the screen is waiting to tell you about the New Hope Ice Arena. And it's something that we're working with through the Connection program, where we are looking at some of the city amenities and trying to help the city tell the story about some of the great facilities and offerings they have in their cities. So this is a little bit longer piece that we put together about the City of New Hope's Ice Arena to tell residents what's available there, how it can be used. So here's a short clip of that piece.
The ice arena is fantastic here.
It's a beautiful arena.
I grew up here playing hockey my whole entire life.
All the people are really nice.
The wood roof and everything like that is probably my favorite part of this arena.
It's really nice. It feels like home.
It's very well built. It's been very well maintained.
I would suggest coming here if you want to learn.
It's just awesome.
The New Hope Ice Arena has been a destination for hockey players and figure skaters since 1975.
And now that we're aging, we're still utilizing the parks in a lot of different ways. We're still walking and biking. We're coming to the community center for events, the Item Farm for events.
Students would agree. Brooklyn Park's after-school program served kindergartners through 12th graders with homework help, mentoring opportunities, and a ton of fun along the way.
I don't have Wi-Fi at home, so I could come here and do my homework since we have the Chromebooks and the iPads to do my homework here.
So we'll look at two pieces there. Again, the New Hope Ice Arena piece is something that can live for quite a long time. And again, we're using it on our channels. The city is using it on their website and channels as well, and through social media. The second part of the clip you saw is something that we did in a little longer format. The city of Brooklyn Park had a bond referendum for parks. And so they came to us multiple times and said, important message, we need to get it out in as many ways as possible. So we did more of an informational piece than what we did, you just saw. We did more of a man on the street, or how does it affect people piece. And then we also had Jody from the Park and Rec Department in and did a Mayor's Minute special interview with her about that issue. And we're happy to see that the bond referendum passed for the city of Brooklyn Park. So I think they can breathe a little easier there now. Next clip I want to show is from the sports department. They are always busy, and you take a look at the blue and red floor, and that is the state floor that goes in at the XL Energy Center each year. And we were proud to have the Champlin Park volleyball team do very well throughout the regular season. And in fact, it went 5 sets on the championship match. And here you see the last point and some of the celebration that our staff did a great job covering.
Champlin Park Rebels win a great match in 5, 15-12. Big swings all the way across. Excitement and elation for the Rebels.
So for all of our great crew here over the last 3 days here at XL Energy Center, Randy Gugesberg, I'm John Jacobson. It's Champlin Park, state champions for 2018.
So obviously a great thrill for the students and the school involved in that. It was their first championship as a team, as a school, since that school started. So a big notch in their cap, and also a great event for our crew. It was the final event of the fall season. Believe it or not, we've already covered girls hockey games, so the winter season is upon us and ready to go. One final note I have, and we have an image up on the screen that I'll show you, is we've been in the process of working with all of the area cities on having the CCX Media logo and link right on the city's website. I'm happy to let you know that with the new Hope City website now up and running, it has the link on it as well. So all 9 cities have the link. Now the next phase of the process is to work with the schools. And as you see on the screen, this is the Osseo Senior High Athletics and Activities page. And so similar to how we work with the cities, we're able to congregate these stories about one city and have it in one place. We can do the same things for the school sports. And so as you see, we worked with Osseo Senior High. The front page is on the top, but if you scroll down a little bit, you see the CCX Osseo Orioles logo. And again, that is on the home page of their activities website. And if people click on that, they go to the congregated list of all of the stories we've done for Osseo Senior High. So first leg in that journey, there are a number of high schools in our area, so we continue to work with all of those schools to see about getting that added. One of the key people behind getting that added, and I think he misses the sports coverage a little bit, is Steve Brockhouse, who again has directed our sporting events for a number of years and now has moved into the lead coordinating position in social media and PR. And so Steve, did you miss the volleyball? he did miss the volleyball, or he wished he was there. But he has been doing a lot behind the scenes, so I want to turn it over to Steve for a minute. He has some information about some of the social media and PR things we've been doing and the results, and also a little bit about the election and some of the extra work we did to get more of the election information out. Steve?
Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good morning. I have some notes on my phone. I'm not texting while I'm talking to you guys, so I just want to let you know. So I took over the new position in September, and one of the first things we decided to focus on was website growth. We launched our new website earlier this year in March, and one of the first things that I wanted to tackle was SEO, which is search engine optimization. With our old website, it wasn't really built in a way that allowed for Google traffic to easily be sent to our website. So we started by kind of categorizing our website with Google, and then working with the other staff members to make sure that our SEO, our search engine optimization, was set up properly with all of the web pages that we set up moving forward. After doing that, it led to a 44% increase in our traffic to our website from Google, and we now average about 9,000 visits a month from Google, which was good. That was a good thing to see. Along with that, then I started a new initiative to sort of use our Twitter and Facebook pages to sort of cross-promote and drive traffic back to our website. That's been really well. That's gone really well. It helps to kind of grow our Twitter and Facebook along with our website, which is kind of nice. We kind of want to create a circle where our website feeds our social media, and then it kind of goes around and around. That, and then Dave mentioned the links on the city's websites, which have been very successful, driving people to city-specific pages that we built for each of our 9 cities, which have been really well received. And those efforts have led to our average user count going from 15,000 users a month to 20,000 a month. So that's been a good growth rate over the last 3 months. So we tackled that right away, and then obviously right when I started, we were prepping for the election. So Tim and I worked on setting up individual pages for the 9 cities again that had all of the local races with all the statements from the candidates, but for each city. So a resident from each of the cities could just look at their specific page and see which candidates were running. Those were very well received by the cities, and they drove a lot of traffic leading up to the election. And then on election night, we made a big push for the live show, which was also streamed on the website. And also that night, we made results pages for each of the 9 cities so that people could come to our website and get real-time updates on the results from the election as they came in. Those efforts were really well received, and we actually recorded record visits for the 3 days, the day before, the day of, and the day after the election. We had record visits, site visits, which was really good. And all of the pages that we created for the election received about 45,000 page views over about a 2-month period. So it was really a good team effort by all of us, and it led to some good results. That's kind of where we're at.
Any questions for Steve? I'm glad we have people like Steve that understands SEO and all of those things. I can't even imagine, thinking back 20 years, that we'd be talking about Twitter and Facebook and all of this. Thank you, Steve. Great work. So again, that will continue to grow. We are looking at more and more ways that we continue to get the message out and reach the younger generation that might not be sitting at home watching it on the TV, as we know, but are looking at our programming and content in other ways. So we're going to be there. Tim is going to give us a quick update from the city standpoint. There are some city projects that are well underway, and then we're also looking to the future with the cities on when projects might need to happen right in your hometown. So Tim, give us a little update there.
All right, thank you. Before I get to this graphic, I just want to mention a couple of things about the election coverage. As you know, it's been a really busy last few months. Candidate forums are a big part of our election coverage as well. We worked in conjunction with various community organizations, the League of Women Voters, various leagues from throughout the area, the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, the Robbinsdale Chamber, and the North Metro Mayors Association. And just to recap, CCX Cruise recorded 16 events at 10 different venues, that's 9 city halls and a brewery, and which resulted in 30 different forums covering at least 41 different races. And this is in addition to our normal coverage of city meetings, which average about 30 a month. So it's been a busy couple of months here. Other projects going on, excuse me, or upcoming include the building of, I've been involved in New Hope City Hall is coming up out of the ground, and we've been working with AV consultant to identify system design for the AV system in the council chambers, cameras, equipment, stuff like that. The AV part of that project is expected to go out for bids soon, and I guess installation occupancy is still slated for late spring to midsummer, Kirk? Somewhere in there. So we're getting that moving. Also, Golden Valley is starting to make plans for upgrades in their city council chambers, both for the broadcast as well as possibly a major makeover of the room itself. I have met with city staff. We toured a few city halls and had a preliminary kickoff meeting. That project is also potentially on a mid to late 2019 timeframe. And so that's moving along too. If we switch to the next slide, speaking of city council chamber upgrades, this is a list of, and I know you've seen this information before, it's a list of when each of our city hall broadcast systems was last updated or replaced, and you can see that some of the systems are getting to the end of their life expectancy. The life expectancy of the system is 8 to 10 years if we stretch it. There's been a lot of changes in technology since some of these earlier systems were built, not the least of which is the changeover from SD to HD in the last few years. And just like in the IT world where computers last only a few years and it's tough to keep up with, some of our equipment is computer-based and has a shorter life expectancy than that because they're computer-based. So that just gives you an idea who should be thinking about the future. Marcia and I spoke briefly and are looking at Robbinsdale potentially here coming up soon to start talking about what we can do for upgrades there to improve both the in-house experience and the broadcast experience there. I guess that's all I have for right now. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Tim. So cities, be ready for that. And I can tell you the Canada Forum at the brewery was at lunch, and it was a very nice forum. I was the MC, and George was one of the candidates. So it went very well for Robbinsdale City Council and some of their legislative. Last update is Barb Nolan's going to come out and give us a little Create update. The studio you're sitting in is obviously very busy, but a lot of things happening in the community as well as with some of her staff. So Barb.
Good morning, everybody. And I'm waiting. Go ahead, Jamie, and you can forward the slides. I'll kind of direct you to what's been happening. Go ahead and change, Jamie. One of the things that's happened, a few things have happened since the last report, and one that we're very excited about is when our master control operator retired back the end of July, Tamisha Turi, one of our studio managers, took on the role of becoming the programmer for CCX 2 and 3, our public access channels. And it has been awesome for us so far because we've always really wanted, we know the programming that the volunteers are creating, and with her getting on board, we've really been able to creatively program the channels. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. And what's also helping too is it gives us the ability to schedule things more often and to do some really awesome, just getting the word out through promotions, through Facebook, et cetera, and letting people letting people know what's actually going on our channel. So I just wanted to say hats off to Tamisha Turi for taking that on because it's a lot of work, but she's doing an awesome job. So go ahead, Jamie. Also, we're very excited. We got on board with GovDelivery probably the end of July as well, and it's been working really great for CCX Create. We've been using it to get information out to people in the community about our classes. We actually have been using it as a really great tool to get in touch with all of our members, and we're really starting to push out information on our programming. So I encourage you all to find us on GovDelivery and sign up and get information on it. We're trying to put out monthly reports on different types of programming that you'll see on our channels. So we're very excited to kind of come on board with CCX News and CCX Cities as well. Okay, Jamie, go ahead. Okay, we have been working with nonprofit organizations, so I thought I just wanted to show you a little short video clip of one of the projects we've been working on with Cross Services, which services the cities kind of in the north part of our franchise area. So if you'll go ahead and play that, this is a a clip that Dustin Cooper, one of our studio managers, put together for Cross. It's just kind of a quick look at some of the work we've been doing with nonprofits.
Well, they're always given out to people, and they're given out to me, so I figure help them out in a different way, you know. There was one other incident where I'm living in the apartment building. People were going to throw out this real nice looking homemade bunk beds. I threw them in my car because I said, hey, I know people that can use them. I threw them in my car and I got a real small car. Part of it was in the inside of the car. The rest was up on top. I drove that almost 200 miles and unloaded it, set it all up for these people because they were sleeping on these, what do you call, sleeping bags, the kids were. And you should have seen them. It touches me.
Just a really, really great project. And what's really nice is what we're doing is we're getting involved with nonprofits and we're helping them out with video, and then we're also empowering them to utilize our equipment to move on to create additional video and to communicate on social media, et cetera. And so Dustin has now, since this, actually worked on, I think, a couple other videos with members of Cross to keep the project moving forward. So it's very exciting. So we're excited to start working with other nonprofits in the area as well. Go ahead, Jamie. We do have a board election going on. It's currently running right now. We have two people running for the position. We have Charlie Brose and Al Heisenfeld, and yes, that is a butterfly on his head. So the elections will actually end this Sunday, and we will have a new board member. You can go ahead and change, Jamie. Okay, and then I just wanted to end with a little bit on our volunteer gala. It was nice to see some of you out there. I had to put up this picture of my amazing staff because they all work very, very hard on the night. And I did want to point out Trudy Radnicki, she's down in the corner there. She really went all out on the decor to the point of making little superhero suckers that we were handing them out. So it was really great. So we do have just a short video clip that will kind of give you a little bit of flavor for what the night was like.
We want to welcome all you superheroes here.
Just a short little look. We had about 100 people, and we really just recognized the superhero powers that our volunteers have. They created close to 1,000 programs over the past year, averaging about 80 to 82 programs, and so they're really superheroes for us. And a really great surprise for staff that night was our volunteers turned the table on us and surprised us with some awards and also a really nice heartwarming video. So we really, really, really appreciated that. So any questions? All right, thank you.
That's the end of it?
Yep.
All right. Nice to get that update since we missed it last time. Any other items?
Just to let the board know, we'll have our annual report at our February meeting. We're always excited about that, to give the whole year in review. We'll also be looking at some strategic planning in terms of the future and helping diversify some funding, with subscriber loss. And so we'll be taking a good hard look at that at the first and second quarter of next year, and getting the board and staff involved with that project. And one final comment, that we were talking about social media, and it's great because you can get instant feedback on all the programming that you do. And Kim Inslee is a former Care 11 morning anchor person. She'd been there for years, and she lives in the northwest suburbs. And she wrote something very refreshing about our organization, saying that it's just so great to watch, to see local candidates and political coverage and local TV without all these negative ads that appear during election time. So, hearing that from her, she probably has no clue that I'm actually repeating her Twitter or Facebook post. But it's nice to hear from people like that who have worked in the industry and even say that, because it shows that we're doing some things right out there. So I just wanted to pass that on to everyone. And stick around, because we have a great breakfast. We do want to take a group photo of the 4 people who are being recognized as well. So sorry about the donuts, but there's something better waiting outside.
All right, and just to point out, at the bottom of the Cable Commission, there's, on the agenda, there's the dates for next year's, if you want to mark your calendars, that we see those things coming up. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.